Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
So when I was little, I first wanted to be a pirate. That was probably the main thing. And even to this day, I'll say to people, when I say, what's your favourite colour? I'm like, it's sea blue, because I want to be a pirate on the sea. That was a real big thing for me. Piracy seemed the only natural job opportunity. Yeah. But then I was always the kid that loved writing and scribbling and creating little stories and what we now, I guess, call fan fiction. I came across, actually, I've been sorting loads of stuff out of my parents' house, and I found an old Star Wars fan fiction I'd written in 1994 or something.
Yeah.
When I was 5 or 6, so to be a writer, to be probably more like a playwright, I think.
Yeah.
My mum used to take me to see a lot of local community plays like murder mysteries.
Yeah.
Or a couple of Terry Pratchett's, because basically local Amdram stuff. That's what we could afford to see is £1.50 tickets.
Yeah.
So I always just wanted to be the kid that wanted to write down stories, create stories.
You're listening to Series 3, Episode 13, and to my guest, Henry Raby. This is another face-to-face interview recorded on the 13th of May, 2022. Hello, loves. Henry Raby is a York-based performance poet, theatre maker, playwright, and workshop facilitator. His work has been described as playful, highly charged, passionate, and anarchic. He's performed at festivals and events across the UK, being published by Burning Eye Books, and runs York spoken word organisation Say Owt. He's half of Vandal Factory Theatre Company and has worked for various theatres. He leads work in schools, youth theatres, and community groups. Chapel FM is the first ever arts venue in East Leeds. Last year, they had a massive 78% increase in the number of the visitors attending the centre. Take a look at their redesigned website to see the massive range of events, broadcasting and training that go on at Chapel FM. Chapel FM's overall aim is to have a positive impact in their local area, Seacroft and East Leeds. Their theory of change states, "We aim to develop East Leeds as a community that has pride, vision and hope for the future, where people welcome and share new ideas and work together to make things happen." You can see more about their full theory of change at chapelfm.co.uk/about/our-organisation. And you can find out more about Henry Raby at henryraby.com. Like, share, follow, and subscribe to this podcast. I am doing all I can to bring this to you. So if you do like anything about it, please follow and promote the show on and off social wherever you can, whenever you remember to. Please give money to this show, and please give me any feedback, questions, or comments that you may have. Email workinghourspod@western-studios.com or use one of my social channels to get in touch. Links for all of those social channels will be at the end of this episode. Now, please enjoy this totally free and totally ad-free, as far as I know, episode of Working Hours with Henry Raby from Chapel FM. So what do you do now?
So now I guess I have 3 hats. I have loads more, but let's go with 3.
Okay.
So the main one is we are here sat in Chapel FM Arts Centre. So since April of 2021, so a year and a month, I've been the broadcasting worker here. Yeah. So that's a full-time job. And since I left uni in 2010, it's been the first time I've ever had a full-time job and not either freelance or 0-hour contracts work. So my other hats have become a bit more reduced over the last year as I'm just managing this new frame of working in this structure. But my other hats are, one is I'm the artistic director of Say Owt. We're a poetry spoken words organisation based in York, where I'm from. And we put on gigs and workshops and events, and we've had a couple of funding from Arts Council bids been successful. But over the past few years, we've tried to minimise because we've all gone in different directions and doing different things, but we're still putting on events. Yeah. And then the other one is just as a freelance poet and writer and still trying to be that kid that wants to tell those stories. Yeah. So part of that has been I've published a book in 2018 for Burning Eye Books and trying to think about another collection and still writing and being creative. And yeah, when I get a chance to doing gigs in a personal capacity as a performance poet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's go with the kind of work-life balance thing to begin with then. So does it give you the kind of flexibility that you want, or is it kind of stretching you too thin?
I've needed to make the decisions I think over the years, every so often you have a bit of a spring clean of all the stuff that you do when you're a person working in the creative sector. So, for a long time, I really tried to make zines, and I'd publish people's zines, and I'd take them to zine fairs. And there was a point I was like, I just can't keep doing like selling zines 50p. I love zines, I love zine culture, but I can't keep this as a string to the bow.
Yeah.
I set about wanting to write plays and theatre, and I love theatre and plays, but there was a point when I sort of went, I just don't think I'm getting the work in through it, and I have to decide, like, I still want to write and still in the theatre company and still have that ambition, but I'm not knocking on doors anymore. I'm not going to poetry writing. I'm not entering competitions. I'm not going to events. I just don't have the time to have that string to the bow. So for 10 years, 11 years of being a freelancer, you just fill every moment you've got with trying to get work, or you feel guilty and lazy. And if you don't do that, you think that, well, am I going to be able to pay my rent, or am I being a bit of a failure? For me, I always refer to it as the land of should. I should be doing better. I should be playing this gig. I should be applying for this money. That's not healthy. Like, ambition is great. Having a drive is great. But like putting too much in the next stage, climbing that mountain, means that you're not looking at where you are now and what is nurturing about where you are at the moment. And so with having this job of 5 days, I've definitely felt I want to put on more gigs, or I want to perform more, and certainly write more. Like, I am feeling like, oh man, when's the last time and not just write, but like edit as well. And learn the poems. I feel like, I've written some stuff, but I'm still like, like a few years ago, I would have done this loads of open mics, and I would have like chipped away at it and structured it better, and it would now be in my repertoire. But I'm like, man, I wrote that 2 years ago, and it's still not there yet. But I love what I'm doing here, and it's that new challenge, and it really did feel like. So I got it when I was 32, and it really did feel like, okay, I'm in my 30s now. This feels like the next stage for me, the new job, the fresh approach, which is really exciting. And sometimes I go, oh, if it was 4 days a week, could I also do this other stuff? But really, like, it's just nice to be like, this is the role I have, which is good. So it's hard to balance everything, but I've always been balancing stuff since leaving uni and going like, what do I do? What is it?
Okay, so I'm going to go straight with COVID then from this, because I think it would be interesting. I think it'll tie in interestingly. So, I mean, the question is to kind of explore if COVID's kind of had any effect or change on your work, but it's interesting as well to say, hear people's story of going into lockdown, and just to think of that initial bit of lockdown. So take us through your lockdown experience. Were you working more, working less? Did you get furloughed? Were you working at all?
So I was, as well as the freelance, I was working 0 hours contract in an escape room, which was sort of there just to make sure I had enough money for rent and food at the end of the month. Is fine, little fun job. And obviously you can't, that's not, what's the term? That's not emergency. What's the, like, important, vital work, that
essential work.
Essential work. That's it. It's not essential work in an escape room. So that was like clearly like we got furloughed as soon as they announced like there's a furlough scheme. I think there was like 3 of us in the office, and we were like, well, that's us then. Like surely. So furloughed from that, and I think I mean it's terrifying times. But if I'm brutally honest, I don't know how much this gets talked about. I sort of was like, cool, well, I get to read lots of books, and I'm going to watch some films, and I'm going to I'm trying to write a book about, again, so many strings to the bow. I'm trying to write a book about the history of protest music in the past decade over the age of austerity. So it's chance to just sit back and go, what could I also do? So it was on universal credit. I wasn't eligible for any of the self-employed support schemes, because 50% of my income had come from pay-wright work or 0 hours work. And I think 1 year I had earned more. Like I was slowly climbing up that little ladder of like moving the scales so that I was more freelance than the 0 hours stuff with the escape room, or I was also doing working as an usher at the Theatre Royal. So it was just sort of like eking over to the other side, but not enough. So it was just being very lean and quite careful, and wasn't anywhere else to go. So yeah, really scary of like, what is this thing? But initially was like, I'll just be productive, because that's how my brain works. I'll just crack on. I'm that sort of person that has to be like, I think it's less about trying to be productive and ambitious and more about trying to find things to fill my time. I'm the sort of person that when I wake up, I'm instantly like, pop the radio on, pop a YouTube video on, get my Wordle out, watch a film. Like, just like I have to have things going on in to drown out the void. So that was initially, and then of course as things go on, I realized I wasn't getting any work, any offers, and the arts sector had its emergency funding, so a lot of people were doing like Zoom gigs, Zoom events, like we need people to run workshops, and I did feel that no one was really dropping me a message going, we need you to, do you want to come and run this? Do you want to come and run that? Do you want to perform here? Which is fine. I really don't want to sound bitter about that. I just think as artists we need to be really honest, and I was like, I just, no one was and other people were friends of mine that I really value, fantastic performers, poets, writers, directors, theatre people, were getting really good opportunities. Not really good opportunities, don't want to sound so like,
but they were getting work.
I think there was work out there that was with this emergency funding. Not much of it, and it's all in bits and pieces, and it was scary for everyone. I'm not saying that anyone was secure in any way, but yeah, it was.
But it's the kind of like, what am I not doing that they're doing? Or,
and so I generally was thinking, I need to retrain. I felt like I needed to go, what's the next stage of my life career going to be? And I was looking quite seriously at retraining as an English teacher. I have an English literature degree. I've worked in secondary schools as a poet and a writer and an artist in residence. So I was like, I think that's if I went into anything, but that means that's your job. Like I'm not going and putting on loads of other gigs. Like if you are a teacher, that is the hours you're doing. And I totally would, I think, get a lot out of that. I love working with young people. I come from a youth theatre background. That is my jam. But that does require a big shift in your career and life. So that was something I was considering. I was talking to a few friends that had been teachers and just had left the profession for various reasons. I did a module in understanding autism, which made me understand a lot more about myself. I don't have a diagnosis. I'm definitely dyspraxic. I tick all those boxes. Was certainly reflected over the year about who I am and what I write and where I want to go in life.
Are you putting that on the page, or are you just doing that in your head?
No, I wasn't putting anything on the page, really. I did write a piece. I saw poet Molly Naylor put on Twitter saying, what 3 words describe you? As a little exercise, and I decided it was scrawny midday nerd. It was the way I describe myself. So I did write a poem that was about my aesthetic, like who I am, and I feel that was the most sort of reflective. But it's only like, it's a short piece. I said to people, like, we're still living through it. Like, it's okay if you don't have the lockdown poem. In fact, I don't actually want to hear that. When we were able to slowly put on gigs and events, something I was afraid to listen to, the lockdown poem, and everyone needs to express themselves in a certain way, for sure. I don't police that, but certainly I wasn't ready to go, I have the answer, I have the thing that I'm going to talk about. So it was certainly in my head, and it's hard because all your friends are going through really difficult situations, so people don't want to, you're the shoulder for people, sure, but you're also not there to have these like, oh, what am I doing in my life, when that other person's going, what am I doing in my life? And to different degrees. There's times I was talking to my friends, I was like, oh, come on mate, like, be a bit proactive. I applied for so many jobs in varied degrees, some for like a £200 commission through to full-time work, and didn't get anything, but I tried to be proactive and productive and work it out, while at the same time being like, where's this
I mean,
going?
how did you sort of organize yourself for that? What did you give yourself, like 9 to 5, I'm going to be sat in the corner on the computer, or like, did you have a space to work in, or was it just, I should be doing more? You know, you sort of got up and kind of like tried to do a load of stuff, then got frustrated. And
Yeah. I think, I'm quite bad actually at setting up a space and a time and structure. It's something I've really never been able to nail down. I think it was more about like a bit here and there. So it's like you get up and you like fortify, solidify yourself for the day, and then do a bit of work, but not too late, and then like read a book for a bit, or like watch something in the evening, hang out with my flatmate. I don't think that's probably the best, most productive way, but it's certainly what I wasn't treating it like a 9 to 5. I wasn't seeing it in that stretch, but it's quite bad for me to coordinate a lot of that stuff anyway. So I don't.
And you don't want, you know, if you wanted to do a 9 to 5 job, you would have gone and been working in an office 9 to 5. You know, you've taken an artistic route for a reason.
Yeah, and you know, I was also looking at like. Yeah, other like non-artistic jobs as well. Don't get me wrong. Like it wasn't that I was like, I can't bear to work anywhere else. It was just a case of being strategic and tactical in what I want to apply for. And I guess a good thing and a bad thing, the double-edged sword, is when you have done so much stuff, what is that route to take? So 2 examples of jobs I applied for. One was working as a producer, and I've put on events and I've coordinated things and scheduled and budgeted and timetabled and toured. So yeah, I can absolutely produce things. And one was being the assistant in an after schools primary school club in a village just outside of York. I love working with young people. I've worked, you know, I started off working as an assistant in the youth theatre, and then became a youth theatre director, and then have like, you know, been a facilitator and done freelance in school. So yeah, great. I was absolutely fine to be like, this is a little like after school thing I do Monday to Friday for a couple of hours, and that's a nice bit of money that like I would have happily been either, but they're very different roles. They're very different jobs with different time structures. So it is hard by going, well, which one do you go for? Which one do you focus on? And it just was, I was just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what happened. And then this job came up. I mean, there was one job, to be honest, that I was like, God, I've got this, and I'm definitely going to get it, but like, surely I should get an interview, and I didn't. And it was an organization I'd worked with quite a lot. It was like, again, producing, putting on things, programming, managing live events. I really thought they'd be like, oh, cool, Henry's popped in an application. Let's have, but they didn't. It's fine. Like, there's no.
It's fine, but it's still like, it still hurts. It's still like demoralizing when you're trying to motivate yourself, and you know, like you need wins to keep doing that, don't you?
Even, you know, I never have any assumption that I'll even get something, but I thought that I was so far along in the career and the relationship with this organization that you go, oh, surely like I'm at a point where like they can see me in the interview. But then you just sort of go, look, like, so many people are applying for stuff. It's so competitive. And also that because they know me, might just know that I'm not right for that role. Like that just means I'm right for other things, or it's next time around. But yeah, this job as broadcasting worker at Chapel FM Arts Centre came up, and it just seemed to take, Wheelers was saying like so many different things, so many different hats, so many different aspects. So it's working with young people in training, it's managing a schedule of events, so it's programming and producing, and it's also in community arts and being accessible and welcoming, and being, it's sort of political to go, we are a community centre, so what does community look like? How do we make our spaces accessible and open, and being able to talk about that and talk about ideas. So yeah, I think it's all right to say I didn't initially get the job. I gave it to somebody else. If that person couldn't do it, I was a second choice. So again, there was this like, I came out of it being like really positive that I'd got to, it's the most I'd got along with it to like a second or third stage. I felt, and I felt like I'd come along and made a new relationship with an organization. It was, as you say, it was those wins that really did feel like a win. And that was at the end of 2020 going into 2021. So I did feel like I was like going into the new year with a little bit of a spring, just because I'd got an interview, which was important.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you eventually got the job. So was it, were they in-person interviews at that stage?
I had a Zoom interview with board members
Yeah.
and then and staff, and then I ran a workshop on Zoom with young people.
Yeah.
That was just about how you put together a radio show, what radio is, but they were like, it is about that content, but it's also about how you interact and engage, which I think I came out of it like, okay, like I feel like that is my bread and butter. So I am like, I'm sure there's times I've gone into workshops and it's not worked, and there's times I've nailed it. So I felt like I was like, I'm okay on that.
Yeah.
And then I had an in-person interview here, which was they're always daunting, and especially when when you're freelance, you don't tend to interview much as a freelancer. You tend to like, because they're little pockets of work.
Yeah, and it's normally through a recommendation.
Yeah, so like
you don't work with before.
Yeah, I actually I just want to say I did do a really nice project at the start of 2021. That was another like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Where like it was to work with Doncaster's theatre, which is called Cast, doing online Zoom workshops in playwriting with 2 different age groups, and they created they wrote some plays that then were performed by professional actors, and that was over a couple of months. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed that project, and it really made me go like, yeah, I do have a specialism. It's young people in writing, and I felt like I did a really good project with them, and built a really nice relationship with Cast actually. Like, they're a really nice venue and really loves the staff team, and then I got offered this job, and then they came back and offered me a bit more work, and it's I tell you what's been bizarre. This is such a friggin' humble brag to be able to turn down work after 11 years. And I'm sorry to all the people out there that are struggling. Like, I really feel you, and I totally get that solidarity. So I'm sorry this sounds such a knob-heady thing to say, but like, to be in a position where you go, I'm sorry, I can't fit that into. But I think there was also a thing. I had been offered some work, and I sort of go, I could probably do that. I could probably fit that in. But I go, for my own mental health and time capacity, no. But also I was like, I'll give this to another freelancer. Here's the name.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Do you refer people?
Yeah, totally. Like, I've done that a few times. And I don't want I don't want a good guy award.
It favors, doesn't it? I mean, because you send a few people their business that way, and hopefully they reciprocate.
And that happened to me as well. Like, people have passed on stuff to me. So it's an ecology of freelancing in arts that you have to look after each other a little bit. You're kind of competing, but you're also having to cooperate. Oh man, like competing. That, I mean, that's definitely what I felt. And like, no one's actively competing as in they're trying to scupper each other. But I did feel over lockdown that like that competition of there's only so many opportunities out there. I mean, there's always so many opportunities, but like some people, it's hard. That's why I think like as much as I have like so many interests, like to be really specialized in what that thing is. If you need someone to work with young people to create something, great. If you need someone that's a bit political and sharp and punky, that's me. If you need someone that does X, Y, Z, so that's not me, because that's not my specialism.
Yeah. You're kind of in an odd position because you had that experience through lockdown. So it's not like there's a continuity of like before and after for you with it. So I've got a question about Brexit. So I'll drop that in early because of that situation. So have you noticed any difference in the way that you work pre and post Brexit? Has it affected your work at all?
In terms of the amount of work or the opportunities it offers, no, I wouldn't say so. I can definitely say that I know friends that work in theatre where European partnerships have been a really key thing, and that money has just gone. There's a few sort of legacy projects that are happening that I think were in place before, but the projects that people were doing, like Pilot Theatre in York, I knew that they were doing lots of stuff, and I don't know if this came with EU funding, but I took part in a youth exchange when I was 18, and I went to Germany, and it was the first time I'd gone abroad without my parents and met other young people from all over Europe. And people go, but do you need the EU to do that? People always say, but you can still do projects like that. But I think this sense of like European community and connectivity has really been made threadbare. And it's a bit of it's not like a thing that you do. It's the hot potato, it's the elephant, it's the struggle, it's the thing that you sort of have to weirdly justify or find. But in terms of the work I've done, not necessarily. But what it has influenced is, racism and nationalism absolutely existed before 2016, but no one can deny, no matter what side of the fence you fall on and all the economic reasons you can throw out, there's no doubt that the toxicity around getting our country back and nationalism and borders was completely inflamed throughout the campaigns and then beyond. And it's only just been heightened and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I think as artists, that is absolutely our responsibility, especially as you know, myself, I'm a white man, like I'm a British citizen, a national. My gran was from Germany, but otherwise I'm probably like the tick box for all the recruitment drives that people would want into racist movements. Actually, like, we really need to put our lines in the sand and say this is not acceptable. And whether that's in angry punky poetry, that, you know, I've written enough of those, of like if you want your country back, then you build a time machine, you visit 1381 and you shake hands with Wat Tyler. That's like a line from a poem I wrote at the time that was just like, what does this even mean? But like throughout to the work you do to make sure that you are absolutely drawing those lines in the sand. We don't always get it right, but we really do try, and we're programmed to make sure it's as diverse as possible, and it isn't just a bunch of white people on a stage, because that's still buying into a really toxic narrative of like, whose faces are you seeing, whose voices are you hearing, whose ideas are being platformed and shared. So yeah, it's just within the DNA now of everything that we do, and here at the chapel, just being really conscious of, we have a Care to Calais, have a group of asylum seekers that come and use the space just to, you know, get some fresh clothes, or just to play a game of Ludo and just meet and chat, and maybe some interpreters around, and to really be like, and when they were starting here, one person came to the door and was like, oh, just seeing how many there are in there. Like, that level of like suspicion, you have to really be like, actually no, this is an open space, and we're not accepting any of that, like, okay, all right, because that is, and locally in Seacroft, what are they called? Patriotic Alternative, who are a far right group, they've been organising, because Seacroft is quite a white area, and so they've been mobilizing, and we just need, as an organization, to go, it's not enough to be a bit liberal and like, oh no, well, we're not racist. It's, you have to be anti-racist, and that's what I'm getting. But again, it's really easy for me to do all those platitudes and sat here, and I'm in a very safe, comfortable position. I think it's a constant conversation for how we can be the best allies we can be. So that's how Brexit has influenced my thinking. It's, you know, it's not anything that I didn't think before 2016, but like, that's where the country is, and that's where you need to and bring people together as well, like, and build communities and build that idea of like, okay, well, you know, we're out of the EU, fine. It's a, you know, it's a an economic structure. Whether it did good or bad, fine. But no, I'm not having those conversations. What I'm having the conversation now is like, how much do you believe of the we're getting our country back narrative that is so toxic it you know, it could burn through a table. Anyway, there's a little ramble for you.
Where should I go? Right. Well, I'll lead it into social media. How much social media do you have to do for your job? Does it take up a lot of time? Does it invade your time? Do you have to do social media for your job? And if you do you feel that you get a good return on investment from social media? Does it benefit the time that you put into it? Do you get that return back, in that it's really worthwhile for you to do?
I'm so addicted to social media. It's just a go-to for me, that if I find, I said, like, just filling my brain with content. If I find that, like, I just find that my hand just goes to my phone, goes to my pocket. It's just, it, you know, pulls it out every so often, refresh. That's not healthy. I'm trying to manage that and deal with that. I run accounts for all the different stuff I do. I have like a work account that I set up when I got this job, that was just me in a personal capacity, just sharing some of the stuff we're doing, just give a little extra boost to the Chapel FM stuff. I usually share about the shows we've got. I'm trying to do one tweet per show, just to push and encourage broadcasters to also share and get that out there, because we are a small staff team. We don't have someone in charge of marketing comms. We need to do it ourselves. which I do feel is part of my job, but I wish that it was someone. I understand social media. I've had to learn about it in the same way I've had to learn how to edit audio. I've had to learn about booking tours. Like, you have to self-teach yourself. I didn't do a degree in it or anything, but I wish someone that was more competent in it could do it. But I know the times to post on it. I know what works. I'll put some emojis in there. So I do that on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So yeah, I've had to use that. It's necessary. And with Say Owt, like, to promote stuff. What I found is with Say Owt, to put that hat on of putting on poetry gigs, Facebook's dying. Like, people aren't paying attention to it as much. It's a different generation that use it. Young people that are coming up, sort of between 16 and 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, they just don't use it. Or if they've got it, it's for family. They're not looking to see what the next events are. I've had a little bit more success with Instagram because you as the account can then follow other people's accounts. Yeah. You have to do a little bit of farming, which also feels really creepy and weird sometimes, to be like, oh, who's liked this picture? So example, I'm trying to do a thing where I go, what are the accounts in York that were similar to? So I go to like bands and I go, right, so who's liking this band page that are who's going to gigs at these events? Here's a list of people. Oh, they're all like studenty types, or I'm going to follow them. I don't care what they're posting, but it's trying to game the algorithms to be like, oh, this is part of the York live events circuit. Yeah. So that means that you're trying to attract like that attention on Instagram. But I'm not very good at like talking on Instagram because we're a live events thing. You post your live events, but you do that after the event has happened. So I'm like, what content do I put on there in approach to it? I guess if you're a band, you can put on like, oh, I had a really good rehearsal today, or like had some inspiration, or I've gone to this other gig. But I find it quite weird, like, what do I put on that social? I mean, it's probably social media people out there screaming, going, like, there's loads that you can put on. But what I found difficult is I will put up, we're putting on this gig next week and it's going to be really good. Couple of likes, maybe a retweet. We put on this event. Look at all these smiley faces that came along to this brilliant gig. Look at the audience. Look at the people performing. Get quite a good response from it. Brilliant. That the events happen. Like, it's not very. It's useful because it's showing people going, oh, that was cool. But you get more response after the event than leading up to it.
But that's faces as well, because you can put faces in the post, and then. I mean, it's that thing, like, so from my point of view, I know I have to go and do a bunch of reels and stories and stuff like that, and I just have to do it. And, like, I keep sort of, oh, well, I should wait until I get my hair cut, or I should do this, or, I need the right background. And the people that do it, they're just like doing it because nobody cares about your background. They care about you being on there and what you're saying. Are you saying something in a funny way, or, and it's that, but it's like, do I want to be that?
Yeah, I do find there's like a bare minimum of like, and do it right. Like, I do put on the stuff that needs to be put on there, and I'm always like tweeting angry things. I'm annoyed at the world. But yeah, I'm not going too far down that. I did wonder about setting up a TikTok for myself because I thought, TikTok's for teenagers, young people. I'm like, cool, great, they need that platform. And I started seeing like other things where people like to, so I go, oh, okay, maybe I will set up a little account. I feel like I want to like create a list of things I want to do first and then go on TikTok, so I have a bit of a schedule, because it seems like you have to have your vibe on there. I was thinking I might do little like 60-second history lessons on protest songs of all history, and that's like a little side hobby thing that I have, and that could be quite an entertaining way of using social media without having to be like, and there's a gig coming up, or here's a show you want to listen to, or here's an angry opinion I have about the government.
That's it. And it's kind of, you bring to your work, because it's social media, you kind of bring to your work the habits and practices that you've had from being on social media, which is like, I'm angry about this. It's like, but you're working now.
I do. Yeah, there's the thing of like, I tweet about this, I might get some juicy responses. And I'm like, I don't really. I don't know. God, I think sometimes I look back on my tweets, because again, I'm just like, I have to like be on social media. I go, God, I'm tedious.
Yeah.
I'm saying nothing that no one else is saying. This is just like grumpy 33-year-old man on Twitter. Just shocking news. Lefty doesn't like government. Oh wow, what a scoop.
All right, let's do UBI. No, let's do climate change first. So again, I use climate change as a sort of, cipher for the bigger green agenda and all the other terrible things that are happening. So in your work, is there anything that you can do to address or to mitigate climate change, or is it something that you can't think about? I mean, I suppose think about this in your freelance capacity as well. Like, I mean, in your work, can you build that in already, or is it just like, I've just got to get the job and get the money in, and then I can think about being green?
Well, from a Chapel FM perspective, we've got a show called Think Global, Act Local, which talks to different people in East Leeds and Leeds in general about things they're doing. So it's a really nice platform. So it's only like 30 minutes. So they pack loads into a show. There's one, in fact, going out in exactly 45 minutes. There we go. So they've done 8 episodes so far. It's pretty good going. And then we took a group of young people. We had a climate group to explore it, unpack it, of young people. We took them to COP26 to interview people, to talk to people. We made some shows around that. It was almost too much, so too many interviews. Like, we just had no idea how to manage it all. But really, I think that really pushed them and nudged them to think and learn about these things, even if they already had a bit of skin in the game, a bit of interest in it. So. And then in terms of our policy, like, we are actually only a small building. We do have a ground source heat pump, so we're already pretty green. I did some training, sustainability in arts. I can't remember.
Sustainable Arts in Leeds.
Sustainable Arts in Leeds, yeah. And that was really, really good training, and I really recommend it. Something that was interesting was they said, I always put this to people and I test them when I say, so Opera North did a big audit of their climate sustainability, their output, their carbon footprint. What do you think is the thing that is the biggest that carbon? And people say, it's touring, it's actors, it's the building. I was like, no, it's audiences coming to the building, and that's sort of a bit difficult for arts organisations because our whole point is to bring audience to venue. So I'm not going to speak for what old Opera North have done. You'll have to talk to them on your podcast.
Or listen to the episode.
Oh, okay, excellent. Brilliant. So for us, like, we don't have huge numbers of people traveling here. It is linking up maybe some parents that live in the same area to do a car share or something. But we do a lot remotely as well.
Well, you've got that community focus as well, which is, like, in terms of resilience building and so on.
People still drive in though. That was annoying.
Yeah,
it feels like that's not. I mean, we look at like turning all our equipment off. We're just doing little bits and pieces. But what our messaging really is trying to like have a green. So we work really closely with Climate Action Seacroft, and we work really closely with. We have worked with Season Well, who look at foraging in the area, and we bring that to young people, and we bring them interviews, people to talk to. So it's sort of embedded in a lot of the DNA of what we do with folks. And it's something I thought about. I didn't really get around to it, but like having a month where it was a green month and all shows had to do something around the climate crisis, and if they're a music show, all it is like they have to at least source a story of a band that have decided to go by train and talk about that, or some songs written not just Big Yellow Taxi, like some songs that are about the climate crisis in some way. And some shows that see from others have said, think Global, Act Local, that's just a normal show for them. For someone like I'm just thinking like I guess like maybe Sports Talk, they could talk about like not allotmenting, but they could look at some sports that are really outdoor sports that are sustainable.
Maybe uniforms and like kits and where they're sourced from. And
Anyway, so that was like a little thing, and it didn't quite happen just because I just had other things. But I think that's something I will put in the bag for next time about like pushing people on that, so that even if it's just 5 minutes of your show, you have to consider this in the broadcast. So that's with Chapel FM Arts Centre. Obviously, always more that you can do. In terms of like freelance work, again, I think it's the same with Brexit. It's just got to feed into everything that you talk about and say, and it is a duty as an artist. So I've written pieces about the youth strike, and not to be like, well, I've written a poem about it, so that'll solve the problem, but to bring that into open mic spaces. It's something I was quite proud of, actually, that when I was going to a lot more open mics, and I mean that as well as music open mics, that actually it's quite nice to have someone get up and go, this is a poem about how things are in the world, like, and to bring, like, to put that into people's spaces in between the covers of the Beatles and people doing blues songs, like to put that to folks. So to talk about it and to make that an important aspect of your art, really. And there's loads of theatre companies are making shows about it. But yeah, finding a way to embed it in what you do. I guess in terms of, I do feel really guilty. I do drive a lot, really, and I need to cut down. I mean, coming into work, I try and make sure that I come in from York, so I try and make sure at least once a week I get the bus, or I work from home, or I just navigate how much my carbon footprint. It's not enough, but
but also you had to work as well,
And I think, like, I mean, it's a bit of a cop out. Yeah, we all need to do something, but it needs to be massive. It just needs massive change. It needs to.
But that's it. It's the system change element. It's kind of like you can only do so much, and it's kind of like, well, but these are the systems that are in place already. So there are roads built, there are cars. I have a car.
And I guess one thing I could do, I could buy an electric car, but. And this is, I don't know if this sounds.
Yeah, but you can't just buy it out of nowhere.
That's all my savings. Yeah. That's not. I would have nothing. I would have no fallback. Like everything that I've saved up over the years and more. Like that's gone on one thing, and all it takes is that to get stolen or in an accident that isn't my fault, and that's everything.
Or not work.
Yeah. And also, I've been reading stuff that there isn't enough lithium in the world to create enough batteries in the world to get everyone an electric car. So. All those factors, but I guess it's like those constant conversations with people, and I think the conversations are so like muddied. Like I keep going back to this interview I heard on BBC York where this woman said, we need to go back 50 years, and the person interviewed went, you mean to the 70s? Like, we had a massive reliance on oil in the 70s. Oil was like hugely affecting the economy. What she meant was the 1950s, and you go, but what? We're massively reliant on coal. She meant. Eventually when this broadcaster presenter like got more detail out of her, she sort of meant, our milk floats, like, and that you recycle a lot, and absolutely that's totally what you need to do. But then she had this narrative where she said, well, I don't get takeaways, I don't go into McDonald's, I don't buy from those places, so I don't litter, so I don't like get that plastic from them, and you go, right, okay, and then
so nothing comes into your house wrapped in plastic.
So you're not. It's impossible for you to completely avoid that. But for her, because she doesn't go to Costa was her example. She doesn't enter into this cycle. But then when pushed, she drives a diesel car, and the presenter. Sorry, this is a weird anecdote, but I think it just is really highlighting this like. Weird disparity we have around the conversation. She said, well, me buying an electric car isn't going to solve the problem. And she's right. Her ditching a diesel car for an electric car won't suddenly solve everything. But you go, but literally in 5 minutes, she's making the case of, well, I do this, so I do my bit by not going to McDonald's, but I'm not going to go further and do that bit for it. So people have a real... I guess it's like individualistic thing of like, like being very defensive, but also like... Yeah, the lines of where they...
But it's that thing, I read this thing years ago, I don't know how valid it was, but it was basically saying, when people recycle, it's like, well, I've done a good thing. So now I can fly to, Sydney now, and just have recycled one can.
Yeah, and again, I think it's become such a... a politicized, generally a politicized thing to be like, I've recycled.
It's like lifestyle.
I've just recycled.
Yeah.
So that you've, and I just think it's like urinating in the sea. Like, you know, it's not, it's great. You're adding to the sea, but like, it's not enough. But like, I mean, I think it's a cultural thing. I do think the more that we talk about sustainability, the more we talk about it recycling, the more we make that a thing, that is changing our culture. But this is something that should have happened 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
If this was if these conversations were happening then, we might not be in this real dire situation we are with the climate crisis at the moment. But it's too little too late. The one that absolutely grinds my gears is people saying to young people, oh, just like go to uni, become a scientist and grow up to change things. It's like, but we have the scientists. We have people warning folks trying to make changes. We don't have time. We don't have time to wait 30 years.
Yeah, but this is the thing. All of those people are the people that have been doing that for the past 30 years. And it's like, oh, you know, it's not the problem with us. The problem is you. You're the ones that are in the way.
Yes.
Fuck off out of the way.
Yeah. So I think like, yeah, it is our duty as artists to keep like pushing, changing this narrative. And I think I'm a little bit chameleonic. It's who I'm talking to. I try and shift that. So like someone that is a bit like, well, what more can I do? I sort of go, okay, well, here's all the things you can do. If someone is like, there's no point, it's hopeless, I'm like, no, like this is a cultural thing. It is making a change in what you're doing. And like, you know, from the people going like, well, just buy local. Well, it's a good thing. Do buy local.
It's talked about in narrow confines as well. Like, you know, even within. So you see these various bits, but it's not like they say on the news, this is going to threaten your food supply.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're not talking about breadbasket failures in India because of 50-degree heats or these like rapid droughts that are just happening in France and America and stuff. And like, you know, you need it's like a really low level amount of these breadbasket failures. And this is like huge starvation globally. And it's like, that is full on red alert, crisis level, need to do something about this. And we're still sitting in a world post-pandemic from governments that had been warned that this is your biggest risk, who did nothing. And it's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling the way the situation we're in.
And the climate crisis will create more refugee crises. The next, like, you know, and what I find, this goes into what I was saying about Brexit and this like really like anti-immigrant, anti-asylum seeker, anti-refugee narrative that again it's always been there, but it's totally been inflamed and put in place a hard right government that essentially doing policies that the National Front were talking about in the 70s, 80s, and you can look that up. If you can fact check that, there's like things that they're talking about that are literally this government are doing, and I think that the difference between, for example, what we saw with the Syrian refugee crisis was war happens and bombs are dropped, armies go in, cities are destroyed over the course of a few months, few weeks, even literal days. You can become a refugee in an hour. It's that one bomb, your home's destroyed, you have that horrible status now. And with the climate crisis, it is much slower. It is happening. There's already climate refugees, but as islands are slowly they're not vanishing but becoming like less livable, less sustainable, as certain parts of the world become more and more hostile places to live, slowly you're growing more refugees, and that is it's just happening over time. And countries that have the resources to barricade themselves and protect themselves,
but
like
no country does. I mean, it's like you don't have enough bullets. You do not. Like, what are you going to do? This is the thing that gets me of like, right. So when London goes underwater, what are we going to do? We're going to build a big wall across the Watford Gap and put like machine guns on. Like, how many bullets are you going to need to kill those 8 million people or whatever coming out? Yeah. It's like, where do you stop with that logic?
Yeah.
And what you don't think that human beings, large groups of human beings who are desperate and together, won't think of clever ways around these things, and won't be a bit annoyed when they do get around them.
So all this is like it's cultural, but it's of change and talking and stuff and getting out, and artists needing to be outside our comfort zones a little bit, which is a whole thing of like how you convince people to not be rubbish
and create a market for it. that will pay you.
Yes, so. Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
So I'll do the change question first, and then I'll do UBI. So if you could change any 3 things about your work, what would you change?
I'll do one each for the different hats, if that's all right. So for here at Chapel FM Arts Centre, something I would like to change is people's perception of what an arts centre is. And I think we try really hard, but I always think about what do people, and we talk about this a lot actually in the building, what do people literally see, not even when they walk through the door, when they walk past, like kids will come and be like, what do you do here? And walking over that threshold is still a big thing in the arts, because people were told you can't be an artist, you can't make poetry, you can't be creative. And so that's what I'd change, is not people's perception, like I didn't a magic wand and go, hey, you over there, you have a different perception, but that next generation growing up know that these spaces are for them. Or if they don't feel they're for them, how can we change that to make sure it's an open door, that they can access it? So that's something about like how arts is seen. One person was like, we were doing an outside broadcast, and I said, oh, you should come along and get involved in the radio. And it was as if I'd said, do you want to come to Mars? This idea that they could come and do stuff on the radio. Heck, pop along, come and do some stuff on the radio. That's what we're all about. So yeah, that again, cultural shifts is what we're saying. And then with Say Owt, what I'd really like to change is, I don't know. What was the thing I had to change? Just more people coming to poetry. That's the similar thing answer, I suppose. I just want more people to come through the door, really, and come and get involved. I think something that I've found with last 10 years of Say Owt, or 8 years we're doing Say Owt, is like poets wanted to upskill their craft, and I feel like we've had a lot of people having a go, which is great, and they come along, they have a go at a slam, or have a go at an open mic. We never really see them again. I've always been a big believer that, okay, you push your craft and come and get involved. So yeah, like building, growing a scene, but if you build it, they'll come, but I still want people to come to it. So yeah, people coming to getting involved and trying and pushing themselves harder as artists, as I should do, we shall do. And then as a freelancer, I don't know, as I'm writing this book, like what I'd like to change, maybe this is a hope rather than a change, but I'd like to have like a little couple of hours every week to be able to work on my book. That'd be nice. So I guess like I'd like it's not, is it change? Well, I'd like to change in that. It's just a hope. I don't know. I've read it, Simon. I've just said what I'd like
just making time.
Yeah, it's making time. I like to make time to write another poetry collection, or to finish writing this non-fiction book that I'm writing.
More time and more money is quite popular in terms of resources, because it's kind of like, I need to do more.
Yeah. I mean, like the Landers should, like I've got mates that are like, oh, I'd love to make a load of money. I'd love to be in this big position. And I was like, I want to be so comfortable. I've been able to live my life with not much money. I mean, I don't have any dependents, right? I'll put that out there. Like, yes, I'm a able-bodied person, and I don't have children or elderly family to look after, so like I can survive without very much money, as long as I can buy a new board game every so often, as long as I can chip in some money to help different organizations and solidarity groups. Like, fine, I don't need lots of money.
Will you ever be able to have a house though?
I mean, I know enough millennials my age that have bought a house, and I think they're traitors. I'm so like, how are you doing it? It is a little bit annoying. There are a few that I clock that haven't been able to do it. So I don't know. I sort of like, maybe it's because I've conditioned myself to go, I'll never be able to have one, that I can't begin to think about that, or like where I am. I mean, I've always been in York, so it's not about where I'll be in the world, but like the ups and downs of it, I sort of went, oh no, like it's like having kids as well, to be really honest. I was like, I mean, my current partner, she doesn't really want kids, and I'm fine to not have kids. Like, it's not a massive priority for me, but it is that thing of like, when can I even think about that? But then, someone could argue and go, look, if you make it work, if you want that, if that's something a priority, you turn around, you try and make being a homeowner work, you try and make having kids work. So it's about like where you are in your priorities, and that's, I guess, that going back to that question of change.
But it's also about where you are, I mean, it's kind of like those financial questions can be switched up. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's like, what I'm thinking about is the experience of sort of going into lockdown, because I've talked to sort of other freelancers and artsy people, and it's kind of like, you know, if you are sick or you are, or you can't work or you can't look for work or you can't get work, you know, you need you need some sort of hedge. You need like some savings behind you or something that can get you through that kind of thing. But we'll go straight into the UBI question, because it might sort of come back up again. So if there was a UBI, would you still work? If you would still work, would you still do this job or the job that you're doing now? Or how do you think it would change things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I mean, I've been in a very privileged position that every job I've had, even the stuff that was just to pay the rent, like I've never had a job that I absolutely hated. Even like working in the escape room was quite a fun thing when you had a good team in. Like at the Theatre Royal, it was part of a really nice team of ushers, and you were facilitating people seeing mostly good theatre and shows. So I do feel I've been, I mean, I even worked on like, most boringest job I had was when I was flyering for tourist buses in York, and you had to like sell them this like tourist experience. Like it was fine. Like so anyway, so I guess like I would like to still be doing the work I do, but like yeah, it would be nice to go to 3 days and share it. Actually, like I could easily like coordinate with another person. Like actually, it would be really nice if it was more of a team and different people looking at different things. And actually, I'd be able to be creative and keep doing other artistic endeavors. So that would be really nice. But yeah, like I mean, I do believe that like work steals from us. As much as I said I love my job, even jobs that you love and you care about, like the concept of you have to come to this place, and if you don't, you're probably going to die because you won't get any money for food. Like and as you say, like quite rightly, that people that don't have those savings to fall back on, if you are working class, if you are disabled, if you are in the LGBT community that doesn't have like has prejudice against you, that you have been kicked out by a family, or you don't have that family to fall back on, or you don't have like work to fall back on, or mental health isn't great, that yeah, like you're priced out of what I do going to air quotes normality, the normal thing of getting a job and working. You can't do that, so you're not normal and you're at risk. So yeah, of course, absolutely, like that you need to like chip away at this idea of what like work is a good thing. So UBI is obviously like one model that you can use to sort of go, okay, it's not about working 9 to 5 to get to that point. I guess that's my ramble. I've not really had much chance to think about UBI.
I mean, is not working a good thing?
I mean, that's like the utopian idea.
And is looking for work. Is looking for work working or not working?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something where like I can't remember its specific name, but like the Bradford 1 in 12, I think they were that, you know, they formed like a unemployed persons union, like representation. Like where's the representation for people that are unemployed? I mean, again, this has always existed, but like since 2010, the narrative ramped up about scroungers and shirkers, and people that if you don't work, you know, if you're on benefits, then you're scum and you're lazy and you're a bad person. You are like, there's a weird like Protestant-y, Victorian-y idea of like bad things, bad not working. And where's those people's say? And they're not like, maybe one political party for a bit sort of were like, we'll stand up for those people, but it's still about, and we'll get them into work. We'll make sure there's work for everyone, which is, work is not intrinsically a good thing. Like, you know, a job might be, maybe that's some way to distinguish it. A job might be a good thing to have.
It's hard. The language is hard because I would, you know, I like to think of it as I hate jobs. I don't hate work. I hate jobs.
Yeah.
I hate jobs. I hate going into jobs, and I hate like, you know, I don't hate all my bosses, but I hate having a boss.
Yeah.
But it's good to have someone, you know, I quite like to have supervision or someone to work with, or, you know, someone that kind of like keeps you in check and keeps you sort of at a level.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you start trying to make distinctions of like what these words actually mean and how I actually define them, it gets slippy.
And that's where like, when you're working in arts, like, and you're a freelancer and you're doing the thing you love, like you go, every time I'm writing a poem, is that a product I'm creating that I can sell to a live audience or in a book? I mean, there's a weird
and
thing.
Is it also coming from my heart? Is it a piece of me? Is it a piece of me that I'm ripping out and commodifying?
Like I go, sometimes I have gone, I need to write this poem. Is it because I want to talk about this really important subject matter? As said, it's your duty to make sure that those are being discussed in spaces and you are platforming progressive ideas. Or is it that you go, I just want to write a gag poem because this will go down really well at this thing and I need to get people on side, so I need something funny. And then you pause and you go, oh, am I just like producing something? Is this work I am creating? This is getting in sort of Marxist theory, I suppose, but I am like, that my labor is creating this poem that I will then hopefully make a bit of money on. I mean, I do think there is a thing in arts of like, are you just like cashing in on a thing and you're getting money from trauma or money from an issue. And I can safely say I've never been paid grand sums of money for like being like a white person talking about racism, ka-ching, here's a load of money. I don't think I've ever had that, but I do think that probably does exist in some spheres, or the climate crisis, going like, I'm going to say something important about the climate crisis. Where's my check, please? Like, and yeah, not people need to get paid, don't get me wrong. But I think that, that reflection of like, I'm in the marketplace, and also like scarily, you go in front of a group of people, you've got your book to sell, you're selling yourself. You are going like, please buy my book. It is £10. It cost me, I can't remember, like, it's £4 for my publisher. So that's £6. If I sell 2, that's almost like the living wage, like, and that's paid for an hour of my time. So like, come buy my product, buy me, like, and if I don't do a good enough sell, I might not be able to get that £12. Anyway, it's a frustrating position to be in as an artist selling one's self, even though that exchange should be a positive one of like, hey, I always say we're storytelling apes, and we sit around a campfire and we go, I'm going to tell you where the best buffalo are. And now we are storytelling artists. So we're like, hey, I'm a human, you're a human. Here's a thing you should know about what it's like to have this shared experience. So that's great. But also I've got a book to sell, which is weird. It's weird. Yeah.
Thank you again to Henry for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thanks to you, my dear listener. Come back next week to hear me speak to a man who works with people and data. Life is getting harder again. It's getting worse again. What you are doing now is what you are doing about climate change. It's okay. Hold on. Don't panic. Breathe. Take your time. Think. Make sure you are okay first, then do what you can to help others. Be careful with hope. Hope can fail you. It won't get better, but you must keep going and try to carry those who fall as much as you can. Leeds is a city that has declared a climate emergency. It has also opened its homes to refugees, and it was a city that voted to remain in the EU, but we're not a monolith. There is opposition to each of those things here as well. There are loiners in the middle, and there are loiners who couldn't give a monkeys. If you give a monkeys, please come on this show. You need to represent. No matter what you do for work, you make nuclear bombs, okay, awful, but come on the show. How did that happen to you? What do you think about doing that? Do you think about doing that? Are you a spook or an arc? Come on and lie to me. Normal people, come on the show and be your honest selves. I'm going to close out this week with some Francis of Assisi. I might have said this before, but it's well worth repeating. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. Okay, that's me. Cheers, ears. Take care out there, and do be kind to each other, Leeds. If you're listening to this, I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're such a person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done your recording for working hours yet, then don't wait. Email me now, right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghourspod@western-studios.com. If you fancy being my guest, put guest in the subject line of your email and add a short bio in the message. Stick in some suggestions of your availability and I'll send you a release form and a Zoom invite. If you'd like to be on working hours, I will need a 2-hour window for us to record in. I can record in your work time or during your downtime. I have been recording interviews for working hours for over a year on Zoom, but I can also record offline. You can appear on working hours anonymously, or you can promote yourself and or your company or brand. Cleaner or owner, what is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Be a part of local history, have your voice heard, share your wisdom, give us the inside skinny. This is your show, Leeds, and it's all about what you make of yourself. Do you know what you're doing? If you do, then come and tell me all about it. Come on working hours, even if you don't know what you're doing. I certainly don't. Email me right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghourspod@western-studios.com. If you're allowed to do that, that is. If you're not allowed to do that, then tell me why. If you and your business aren't ashamed of what you do, then let's hear all about it. What good are you doing the rest of us? Are you socially useful? Am I? Is this? Send your feedback, questions, comments, and queries right now to workinghourspod@western-studios.com. What is happening, Leeds? Find out by following this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds to find out when new episodes are going to be released. Or just use the hashtag #WorkingHoursPodLeeds on either of those sites to find me. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds. I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Simon-Treen. Treen is TREEN. Or you can go to my company page, which is linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. If you want to make a podcast in Leeds, whether it's for a cause, a publicity campaign, a product promotion, or your own passion project, then get in touch with me. Western Studios for support, advice, and guidance on anything podcasts. At Western Studios, you work with a real life loiner who is actually in Leeds, who you can actually work with on making podcast content. So don't wade through articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts. Just get on with it. Western Studios can make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios can take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming, and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about it. I feel your pain. For a charge, I'll share it. Writers, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content and made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them. Help me make Muck for Brass, a series of short stories, poems, performance, whatever, all published as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. I want to make it a podcast. I get practice making the show, and you get a finished, performed, and published version of your writing. Businesses, campaigns, brands, got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start? Hit me up at makemypodcast@western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. So what do you have to lose? And what are you waiting for? Save yourself the hassle and the headache and make your podcast with a Leeds-based, in real life, podcast producer, that's me, Western Studios Leeds. Once again, please let Working Hours get big and strong by joining its Patreon. Support Working Hours by becoming a champion on Patreon for £1 a month. You can inspire me and motivate me with a membership and maybe one day even be helping to cover all my costs. You can chat to me there and see me do a monthly live stream where, again, you can chat to me all about the show and, God, do I need to find someone to actively share this project with? Go to patreon.com/workinghourspod right now and sign up, please. And or go to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/working hours and join me there for £1 a month and get access to the Working Hours Discord and chat to me there. I will be putting up additional material on Ko-fi once there are any members there. Please do remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to this show. Every little bit helps. Tell your gran, tell your housekeeper, tell your gardener, tell your parole officer, tell your boss, tell Leeds, and I'll see thee next time, our kid. Working Hours is presented, edited, and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.